So today we're going to be discussing the 2024 presidential election and also maybe the House and Senate elections in the United States. Now, I've done a ton of predictions and breakdowns of this election, and I was mostly wrong with the election. So we're going to be discussing what happened. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put my final election prediction up on the screen. Now, this prediction here wasn't in a video. This was actually, I posted this on Twitter before, like a day before the election, because a lot of things changed between my last prediction and the election. I actually had Nevada flipping back to Trump, which is exactly what happened in this election. But yeah, let's go ahead and just break down exactly what happened. And well, easily enough, as you can see, Trump won every single battleground state, which I did not think was going to happen. So let's go ahead and just take a look at some of these margins. So I had Michigan going to Harris, and I said I'd put money on her winning this state out of all battleground states. That was not the case. She lost it by over a point. She was actually closer in Wisconsin than she was in Michigan. And it looks like I was right about all the other states kind of being big margins for Trump. But yeah, Michigan, I was way wrong. Wisconsin was closer than Michigan in this election, which is very surprising to me. I didn't think Wisconsin would be as close as it was. It was 30,000 votes here. Here, it was more like 80,000-ish. And then Pennsylvania, way bigger margin. Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, those are all huge margins. So I got it wrong. I thought the Rust Belt would be safe blue, or not safe blue, but I thought it would more than likely tilt blue than tilt right. Now, I said that North Carolina and Georgia were more than likely going to Trump. That's what happened. Arizona, I said that was Trump's safest state. And in fact, I think it was. He won this state by almost 200,000 votes, which I believe is his biggest margin. Yeah, it is. So I was right about Arizona being his safest state. I was wrong about Michigan being Harris's safest state. Nevada, like I said, I flipped that the day before the election because the polling just was not in her favor, and it just didn't look like it was going to go well. So yeah, I got these two right. I got these two right. It's just I got these three pretty wrong. Now, I did say that Pennsylvania and Wisconsin could be a coin flip on election night. I did say that. However, in total, my prediction was wrong because if I had to choose between red or blue, I chose blue, and that was wrong. So even though I said it could be a coin flip, it wasn't a coin flip. And yeah, so I got the Rust Belt wrong. Michigan, I got that completely wrong because I said that was her safest state. It was not. So yeah, I got it wrong. I did not think he was going to win the popular vote either. As of now, they're still counting votes because I don't know why they're still counting votes. It shouldn't really take that long, but California's 93% reporting. Now, California does have the largest population in the United States, so that could be as to why. However, still, Florida, they finished counting like on election night, and they have a very large population, nowhere near as big as California, but still, it's kind of weird that California is still counting votes. They should probably invest in some faster systems over there. But yeah, so all the swing states flipped. Iowa, that was kind of the story to watch on election night. That would kind of tell. And for a little bit, she was leading in Iowa, and then that lead quickly evaporated. And also another state to watch was Kansas, which was interesting because for a very long time she led in Kansas, and then it flipped. And part of the reason why that she had a lead in all of these states, or not all of them, but most of the battleground states, and then some of these like kind of mostly Republican, but sometimes Democratic states like Iowa and Kansas. Iowa can flip sometimes, not more recently. In recent times they haven't flipped, but Obama won it back in 08. Did he win it in 12? He might have won it in 12. But Kansas has a Democratic governor. They also just voted to support abortion in Kansas. So you can see that there are Democratic values in some of these Republican-based states, even though these Republican-based states just, elected Trump. Yeah, but the point was we were going to watch these states like Iowa and Kansas to see what they did, and that would help us figure out the election. At first, many Democrats were probably optimistic about the election because of her leads in these states. But like I said earlier, the early vote / mail-in ballot was counted before the in-person day voting, and as we know from statistics, Democrats are more likely to do early voting and mail-in ballots than they are to vote in person. So that means that Republicans have the advantage on in-person voting. Most people do in-person voting, so that's kind of why it shifted from left to right. And there is the red mirage, and then eventually you get the blue wall. I forgot what the exact termination is, but basically it's like when the whole country looks like it's going to go red, and then they start counting blue ballots in cities, which take longer to count, and then you get your Democratic buildup back and you get the election. That happened here, but on a way smaller scale than 2020. The 2020 election had a huge red mirage where all the battleground states were red, and eventually Biden came back and won most of them. And that's because they were once again counting those early day votes, those mail-in ballots, and in fact the cities just, they take longer to count votes, and cities tend to be more democratic. So now let's take a look at kind of like what she did wrong and why she didn't win the election against Donald Trump. I think really it just comes down to the fact that most people were tired of the current administration, which she is a part of, and they just want to change. So that's exactly what happened. 76 million people were like, you know what, screw this, we're not doing this again, and that's where we're at right now. But then again, there were 73 million people who said that no, we're going to continue with this candidate and we're going to try to do something different than the current administration under someone from that same administration, which might be the problem as to why Democrats didn't win this election, because it was a winnable election for them. Now that comes to presidential terms. Now, as for the Senate and the House, the Republicans won both of them, and I had that happening. Now, of course, I didn't do any predictions for the Senate and House in my videos because I didn't feel like I was knowledgeable enough on those positions. Like, I didn't know enough about each individual race. But something to note here that is very interesting, and that kind of backs up my point of that Democrats could have very easily won this presidential election should they have chosen a different candidate. Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan all elected Democratic senators in this election. Pennsylvania did not, although Pennsylvania was extremely close. But Dave McCormick, I believe they called his race. There was a point where Bob Casey overtook him, but I think that's been changed, or maybe they were doing a recount. I don't know. There's something weird happening in Pennsylvania, but Democrats won every election in swing states that were electing other than Pennsylvania in this election where Donald Trump just won by, he won by 312 electoral votes, and he also had the popular vote. If that doesn't tell you that this was a winnable election for Democrats, I don't know what else will. Now, when you go to the House race, it's a little bit different. Republicans just won the majority, and they're going to add on to that in Alaska, of course, and also Iowa and maybe California. That's just what I can see on this map. So it looks like they might get 3 more. And now that's interesting, because then why would Democrats not also win the House? Well, they didn't win the Senate in the first place, and that's just because they were at a disadvantage in this election. There were more Republican states replacing Democratic candidates than usual in Montana and in West Virginia, of course. Jim Justice replacing John Manchin, who was on his way out, and then Tim Sheehy. He's replacing the Democratic senator they had before. So that's an automatic 2 losses. And then, of course, the Democrats, they lost a seat in Pennsylvania. And I forgot where else they lost a seat. It might have been, I think it might have been Ohio. Yeah, Democrats were just at a disadvantage in this election when it comes to the Senate. And they could have very easily won the Senate back should there have been more Senate elections in some of these other states. Like Georgia, they probably would have won there. Maybe not, actually. Georgia was kind of big for Trump, I think. Not really, over 100,000 votes, but I don't know. This is pretty reflective of the Democratic Party's failure to elect normal candidates or good candidates. Joe Biden was, in my opinion, he was a good candidate at the wrong time. I think that prime Joe Biden is a good candidate for the Democrats, at least. He's more likely to be that kind of foundational, normal kind of candidate than pretty much any other options the Democrats like to throw out there. Like, no offense to Kamala Harris, but she kind of just came out of nowhere. Nobody really knows her. She tried her best to campaign herself and to get to, like, kind of introduce herself to the American people, which was the whole, like, I'm from a middle-class family kind of thing. That's exactly what that was. Of course, she repeated that a lot, but that's just to kind of get her message out there. Remember, she didn't have as much time as she should have because Joe Biden got kicked out of the Democratic nomination and she was his replacement. So she just didn't have enough time to campaign. Now, does that change the election overall? I'm not too sure. Once again, she's from this current administration, which has a negative favorability. So it would probably be closer if she had more time, but I'm not saying that she would win it. The margins in these swing states, they are larger than I thought they would be. They're larger than the polls predicted. Of course, the polls were once again wrong this election. I'm never trusting polling ever again. Yeah. I don't know where you would look for election predictions anymore. Nothing's trustworthy, and I'm not looking at betting markets. You gamblers, I don't trust the gamblers. I think there's also a pretty large movement on social media to get Donald Trump elected, and that might have also had something to do with these large margins. Gen Z turned out overwhelmingly Republican in this election, more so. Well, I guess more Republican than we thought they would be. There was a pretty large association with Gen Z and Democratic, and that was not the case here. And that's kind of the Democratic Party's failure to connect with their audience, something they struggle with. They struggle to stay in touch with the voter base. And when you do that, and then you have a populist candidate like Donald Trump who's going to come in and say that he's going to make things better, they're more likely to split for that guy than the person who is struggling to connect with the voter base. These are all things that I did not factor into my original predictions, by the way, because I thought she was doing an adequate enough job. She was not. So what can we expect for the 2028 presidential election? Well, we better hope that we see neither of these candidates on the ballot, because otherwise something's extremely wrong in the country. First of all, Donald Trump cannot run for a third term. That is against the Constitution. So he's not going to be on that ballot. But if he is, then we're going to have a problem. And then if we see Kamala Harris on that ballot, hopefully at that point, she's kind of made herself more well known. But her agenda was kind of similar to Biden's. And as we know, people didn't like the Biden administration, or at least it didn't have that favorable of a rating. So better hope we don't see her on the ballot either. More than likely, what I'm thinking at right now is that it's going to be JD Vance, which is the vice president elect of the United States. He's going to be Donald Trump's vice president. I think he runs for election in 2028. And for the Democrats, they have a lot of options. They have a lot of good options, and they have a lot of bad options. Knowing them, they'll probably choose the bad option. But a good option, in my opinion, and hear me out on this one, would be Gavin Newsom. Dude's crazy, but he's good at what he does. And what he does is he debates very well. He's semi-efficient on policy. It's just, it's kind of but the character is like on par with Donald Trump, and it would be hilarious if Donald Trump ran again in 2028 illegally, and Gavin Newsom was the Democratic candidate, because they would just eat each other up, and it would be hilarious. I mean, it would be really sad for our country because this is what we've come to, but it would be an amazing debate between the two. Go watch Gavin Newsom's debates with any Republican, because it's just it's fun. I don't want to see that on the ballot. I don't want to see a presidential debate between the two, but if there was one, it would be probably the greatest presidential debate of all time, in a comedical sense, because it would actually be the worst of all time. Anyway, what about the 2026 midterm elections? That all depends on Donald Trump's presidency in the first 2 years. It depends on how exactly crazy he wants to go with this whole government reform thing, and how serious he takes like inflations and tariffs and stuff like that. Tariffs can be good if you execute them correctly and in small quantities. That is not what he said he's going to do. So right now it's looking like the economy may not get better. It just depends on how he does the tariffs thing. If he does it right, then sure. But if he does it the way he's saying he's going to do it, then no, it's not going to get better. So we'll have to watch that. For the midterms, we'll have to watch the border issue. He has, both branches of government and the Supreme Court on his side, so he can do a lot of things if he wants to. Of course, Democrats can use the filibuster if they... I think they can use the filibuster. Can they use the filibuster? I don't know. They could try to. But yeah, he has all the power he needs, theoretically, to do whatever he needs to do concerning the border, concerning international policy and foreign policy. The whole government reform thing, Elon Musk, interesting choice to do that. I don't know if I like that. In fact, I don't like that. And I don't know. Something about putting the richest man in the world in the government of the United States, it doesn't sit right with me. It could sit right with you, but that doesn't mean it has to sit right with me. Doing things like destroying, or I guess getting rid of the Department of Education, those things are kind of concerning, and I'm concerned that more of the country didn't see that as concerning, because if you don't offer a solid solution to said Department of Education, which is a federal one, I'm thinking, right? Because each state has their own Department of Education. I'm from Virginia. I'm under the Virginia Department of Education. They have their own curriculum. Of course, there's a federal one which kind of regulates every state into doing a certain set of topics of which you need to teach, which I think is good. Of course, there are some core principles that every school should teach you. Getting rid of the Department of Education is an interesting kind of... I don't know why we were doing that. I think there's a claim that it indoctrinates children into voting Democrat. That's not true. I'm from Virginia, which is a very mixed state politically. But when I went to school, almost everyone there was a Republican. So that's not true. I think it has more so to do with parents affiliation, and also more so of current trending topics that Gen Z and children find important, abortion rights or women's rights in that matter. So I don't know if the school system is the reason as to why some kids are voting Democrat. I don't know. I just think it's kind of stupid. You're free to disagree with me. This is the most opinion I've ever given in a video before. I don't know. We'll see. We'll just have to see. RFK to the Public Health Administration. Interesting choice. I don't have too much issue with RFK as a candidate, but the whole switch up from being an independent to going to the Republicans, it's kind of interesting. Also, they just added a bunch of votes. Did y'all see that? It's California, bro. They just take too long to count. But yeah, he's doing the Make America Healthy Again thing, which I don't have an issue with as long as he does it right. Like, I agree that fundamentally there's a health issue in the obviously there's a health issue in the United States when like 30% of your population is obese. So yes, that is a very good cause. I am 100% in support of that, as long as you execute it correctly and don't just make things worse than they already are. We'll see. It'll be a whole lot of watching on my part. I'm not probably going to make any political videos until the midterms or maybe the next presidential election, because there's not much. I mean, like, I don't like to give my political opinion too often because this channel isn't a political channel. It's a channel about mapping. I like politics though. I like to talk about domestic politics and international politics. So it's also, you know, I can do whatever I want technically. So that's why we're talking about this right now. Also, you guys tend to like this kind of stuff too. Well, the like to dislike ratios say otherwise, but it's because you disagree with me. That's why you dislike the video. I don't care. Would you believe me if I said that I'm not registered to any party and that I'm technically an independent? Probably not. I am though. So yeah, that is kind of my analysis / recap of the 2024 election. And I already kind of glossed over what I did wrong. I didn't think that he was going to sweep the swing states. That's exactly what happened. I kind of thought Michigan would be safe, at least for her. It was not safe for her, and once again, it just comes down to her not really having enough time to present herself as a candidate. Her policies were very similar to Biden's policies, and as we know, that current administration is disfavorable, so running a candidate from the administration and then also running on some of his policies, it's not a good idea. And what if Joe Biden would have stayed in the race? Would this election have been closer, or would it have been further apart? That's a great question, because honestly, I don't know. It would be the oldest election in history because Donald Trump is the oldest candidate ever elected to the office of president, and he'll leave his term as the oldest president ever. And then if they would have ran Joe Biden, he would have, of course, been the older one of the two, but still Donald Trump would have been the second oldest candidate ever. So we would have two old dudes fighting, and you can't really pull the old card because they're both old and showing signs of dementia. So it just comes down to like who has better policy in this case. I mean, Joe Biden at this point, he doesn't care anymore. If you've seen him recently, he doesn't care. He's waiting for retirement. It's hilarious. Also kind of sad because there's obviously mental decline there. I don't know what that election would look like, but it would be an election, all right. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to show some support by leaving a like on it, subscribing to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated. This will be the last video I ever record here, hopefully, in this semester. Wait, hold on. So I'm in my fall semester now, right? And I'm leaving for Thanksgiving break on Wednesday. Today's Monday. And I won't be back here until December 1st, which is a Sunday. And then I have a week and a half of school. And then I go on winter break for the year. And then I won't go back for spring semester until late January. So yeah, this is the last video that I'll ever record here because I can do a bunch of pre-recordings for the week that I come back after Thanksgiving break. So yeah, take it in. You won't see this until late January. Actually, no, because I'm going to do pre-recordings for spring semester. So you probably won't see this until like late February or March. Rejoice. Normal setup, normal conditions, better sound quality, better lighting. It's coming back soon. Thank God. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. And of course, thank you to all the superfans. This includes Serminator, Xalens, Georgie Badev, Deathlord 182, ABXI, Pablo Sigma Cat, Death Strider X, Hammertoad 45, CTG on YT, Poland Country Ball, Nevada Garbage Trucks, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.